Hi, I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to read you the story of Tessa, which is titled like this. After I got to the hospital, the doctor called my parents. Come on, she may not survive tonight. They replied my sister was having a promotion party. 2 weeks later they came, but my hospital bed was empty. Only the note that shocked them. Well, let's go. I'm Tessa, 34, and until recently I was killing myself working as a department head at this marketing company downtown. I mean literally killing myself, as it turns out. But let me back up a bit. I've been busting my ass for years trying to save enough money to buy my own place. I'm still renting this crappy one-bedroom apartment, and every month when I write that rent check, I die a little inside knowing I'm just throwing money away. So I've been working insane hours, taking on extra projects, staying late every night. Sleep? What's that? I was running on maybe 4 hours a night and living off coffee and whatever takeout I could grab between meetings. The morning it happened started like any other. I dragged myself out of bed at 5:30 a.m., chugged 2 cups of coffee, and was at my desk by 7. We had this huge client presentation coming up, and I'd been working on it for weeks. Everything had to be perfect. Around 10 a.m., I was in the middle of reviewing budget projections when this pain hit me. Not like a normal chest pain, this was different. It felt like someone was squeezing my heart with a vice grip. The pain was getting worse, radiating down my left arm. I knew something was really wrong. I've always been tough, I don't complain about pain, I just push through. But this was beyond anything I'd ever felt. Call 911, I managed to whisper before everything went black. The next thing I remember is waking up surrounded by beeping machines and the smell of disinfectant. There were tubes everywhere, down my throat, in my arms, attached to monitors. I couldn't move without feeling like I was going to pass out again. A doctor was standing next to my bed, talking to someone, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I tried to focus on what he was saying, but the words kept sliding away from me. Something about critical condition and lucky to be alive. I must have made some noise because he turned to look at me. Ms. Rodriguez, can you hear me? I tried to nod, but even that small movement made the room spin. The last thing I remember before blacking out again was thinking how stupid I'd been to push myself so hard. When I woke up the second time, I felt a little more human. The breathing tube was gone, which was a relief because my throat felt like sandpaper. The same doctor was there, checking my chart. Good, you're awake, he said. I'm Dr. Chen. You've been here for 2 days now. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, I croaked, my voice was barely a whisper. He pulled up a chair next to my bed. Ms. Rodriguez, you had a massive heart attack, a widowmaker, we call it. The first 24 hours were touch and go. We weren't sure you were going to make it. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Heart attack, at 34? I mean, I knew I wasn't living the healthiest lifestyle, but I thought I was invincible. You always think that stuff happens to other people, older people. Am I going to be okay? I asked. You're going to recover, but this was a serious wake-up call, Dr. Chen said. Your body was telling you to slow down, and you didn't listen. If your coworkers hadn't called 911 when they did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. Not from the pain, but from the reality of what had almost happened. I could have died. At 34, I could have just been gone. Doctor, I need you to call my family, I said weakly. My parents and my sister, they need to know I'm here. That's when Dr. Chen got quiet. He looked uncomfortable, like he was trying to figure out how to tell me something. He cleared his throat and sat back down. I reached out my hand toward him, just wanting some human contact after everything that had happened. He took it and gave it a gentle squeeze. What is it? I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer based on his expression. Dr. Chen sighed, we did call your family. We found emergency contact information in your wallet, you had written down your parents' phone numbers on a card. Okay, so they know I'm here? Are they coming? He looked down at his hands. Ms. Rodriguez, I called your mother on the first day, when we weren't sure if you were going to make it through the night. I explained that you were in critical condition and that, well, that she should come as soon as possible. My heart started racing again, but this time it wasn't from the medical condition, and she told me that your sister was having some kind of promotion party that night, and they couldn't come to the hospital. When I tried to explain how serious your condition was, she said they shouldn't be bothered with. Her exact words were this nonsense. Then she hung up. I stared at the ceiling, processing what he'd just told me. My parents knew I was dying, literally fighting for my life, and they chose to stay at my sister's party instead. My little sister Emma, who's 7 years younger than me, who's always been the golden child. Are you sure? I whispered. Maybe there was some misunderstanding? Dr. Chen shook his head sadly. All our calls are recorded for quality assurance. If you want, I can provide you with a copy of the conversation. I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The physical pain from the heart attack was nothing compared to what I was feeling right now. I'd always known my parents preferred Emma, but I never thought they'd abandon me when I was literally on my deathbed. I'd like to be alone for a while, I managed to say. Of course, press the call button if you need anything. Dr. Chen squeezed my hand once more before leaving. Lying there in that hospital bed, staring at the white ceiling tiles, I couldn't stop my mind from going back to when everything changed in our family. I was 7 years old when Emma was born, and honestly, I was so excited to be a big sister. I remember helping Mom pick out baby clothes and asking if I could feed the baby when she came home. But the minute Emma arrived, it was like I became invisible. Suddenly, every conversation in our house revolved around the baby. Emma smiled today, Emma rolled over, look how Emma grabs my finger. I went from being the center of attention to being background noise in my own home. As Emma got older, it only got worse. Whatever Emma wanted, Emma got. Dance classes at the most expensive studio, fancy costumes, bedroom makeovers, a puppy for her birthday with a huge party. Meanwhile, I was wearing hand-me-downs and working part-time jobs for spending money. The breaking point came when I was 15. I was walking past my parents' bedroom and heard them talking about college savings. We need to redirect Tessa's college fund to Emma, my mom was saying. Emma's going to need it more. You know how expensive those dance programs are, and if she keeps improving, she might get into Juilliard or somewhere like that. But what about Tessa? My dad asked, though he didn't sound too concerned. She's smart, she'll figure it out, she always does. Emma needs more support. I stood there in the hallway, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. They were taking away my college money to give to Emma, just like that. No discussion with me, no asking what I wanted. They'd already decided that Emma's dreams were more important than mine. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't count on my parents for anything. If I wanted to go to college, I'd have to make it happen myself. I started studying even harder and applied to colleges with scholarships. When I got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, my parents barely reacted. College was the best 4 years of my life. I studied hard and maintained excellent grades while working in the campus dining hall to pay for the rest of my tuition and living expenses. I barely talked to my parents during those years, maybe a phone call every few months. They were too busy with Emma. I was relieved to have the distance. When I graduated with my business degree, I moved back home and got a marketing job. Living with my parents for 3 months was hell. They made it clear I was in the way, every conversation was about Emma, every space was needed for Emma. I moved out as soon as I could afford an apartment. Over the next few years, I threw myself into work and climbed the ladder fast. I was good at what I did, and my salary kept growing. I thought I was finally free from all the family drama. But then, when I turned 28, something weird happened. My parents suddenly started reaching out to me. My mom called one day and said, "Tessa, we've been thinking that we should all be closer as a family. Why don't you come over for dinner this Sunday?" I was suspicious at first, but part of me still wanted their approval, you know? So I agreed. At dinner, they seemed genuinely interested in my life for the first time in years. they asked about my job, my apartment, my goals. It felt good to finally have their attention. "We're so proud of how successful you've become," my dad said. "You really figured everything out on your own." I started visiting them regularly, maybe once or twice a month. And somehow, without really noticing how it happened, I began helping them out financially. It started small. My mom mentioned they were struggling with some unexpected car repairs, so I offered to help. Then it was Emma's dance competition fees. Then they needed help with the mortgage payment. Before I knew it, I was sending them $1,200 every month to help with their mortgage. My mom would call and say things like, "Tessa, you're doing so well, and we really need the help. Emma's dance expenses are so high, and your father's been working overtime just to keep up." The crazy part is that even while I was basically subsidizing their lifestyle, Emma was still clearly the favorite. When I'd visit, they'd spend the whole time talking about Emma's latest performance or her college plans. She was 21 by then and still living at home, still getting everything handed to her. I kept telling myself that at least we were finally having a relationship, even if it seemed to revolve around money. I thought maybe this was just how our family worked now that we were all adults. But lying here in this hospital bed, thinking about how they chose Emma's promotion party over potentially saying goodbye to me as I was dying, I finally understood the truth. They didn't want a relationship with me. They wanted my money. And when it came down to it, Emma would always come first, even when I was fighting for my life. I couldn't wrap my head around it anymore. My chest hurt, and not just from the heart attack. How could they do this to me? How could they choose a party over their daughter who was dying? I closed my eyes and tried to push all these thoughts away. I just wanted to sleep and not think about any of this anymore. The next few days in the hospital were a blur of medications, tests, and treatments. Nurses came in every few hours to check my vitals, give me injections, or adjust my foredrip. The doctors were constantly monitoring my progress, making sure my heart was healing properly. Slowly but surely, I started feeling more like myself again. What really kept my spirits up were visits from my coworkers and my boss, Mr. Patterson. On the third day, he showed up with flowers and a card signed by everyone in the office. "Tessa, how are you feeling?" he asked. "Better each day, thanks for coming. The whole office is worried about you. Take all the time you need to recover. But have you been pushing yourself too hard lately?" I sighed. "Yeah, I was trying to save for a house down payment." "Houses can wait, your health can't. Promise me you'll take better care of yourself." "I promise," I said, and I meant it. Over the next few days, more coworkers stopped by with magazines and funny stories from the office. It was amazing to feel so supported by people who were basically just work friends. Meanwhile, my phone sat silent, no calls from my parents, no texts asking how I was doing. By day 10, I was getting stronger. The chest pain was almost gone, and I could walk around my room without getting winded. Dr. Chen was pleased with my progress. "You're recovering remarkably well," he told me during his morning rounds. "I think we can discharge you in a few more days, but I want you to take at least a month off work. Go somewhere peaceful, maybe a nice resort or spa where you can really relax." "A month? But I have so many projects." "Ms. Rodriguez," he interrupted firmly, "if you go back to your old routine of working 80-hour weeks and living on stress, you'll be back here within 6 months. This heart attack was your body's way of telling you to slow down. If you don't listen, the next one might kill you." His words hit me hard. I'd always thought I was invincible, that I could just power through anything. But lying in this hospital bed had shown me how fragile life really was. "You're right," I said, "I'll take the time off." On day 12, I did something I probably should have done years ago. I opened my banking app and looked at my automatic transfers. There it was, $1,200 sent to my mother's account every month like clockwork. For years, I'd been helping them pay their mortgage while working myself to death. I stared at that transfer for a long time, thinking about everything Dr. Chen had told me about their phone call. My parents knew I was dying, and they couldn't be bothered to come see me because Emma had a party. A party was more important than their daughter's life. I canceled the transfer. Dr. Chen came by later that day with good news. You're doing so well that I think we can discharge you tomorrow morning. Do you have someone who can drive you home? I'll call a cab, I said. What about your family? Shouldn't they? Trust me, they won't be coming. He looked sad but didn't push it. I think he understood the situation better than most people would. That evening, I was resting when my phone started buzzing. It was my mom calling. I stared at the screen for a few rings, then declined the call. A few minutes later, she called again. Then again. After the fourth call, I turned my phone off. I had a pretty good idea what this was about. It was the 15th of the month, and she hadn't received her usual $1,200. I wasn't ready to deal with that conversation yet. The next morning, Dr. Chen came by with my discharge papers. Now remember, he said, take it easy for at least a month. Find somewhere peaceful to relax. And if you experience any chest pain, shortness of breath, or unusual fatigue, come back immediately. I will. Thank you for everything, Dr. Chen, you saved my life. You're welcome, but promise me you'll make some changes. Life's too short to spend it all working. Before I left, I had one last request. Dr. Chen, I know this might sound strange, but could you do me a favor? If my parents show up here today looking for me, could you not tell them I've been discharged? I'd rather they find out on their own. He raised an eyebrow. That's an unusual request. I know it is, but trust me, they're only coming here to talk about money, not to check on my health. I'd like them to walk into an empty room and see that I'm gone. Dr. Chen thought about it for a moment, then nodded. I understand, patient confidentiality means I don't have to tell them anything. I also had something else I wanted to leave behind. I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote a note. Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know you're only here because you realized I stopped sending money. I will never give you another cent, and I never want to see you again. We're done, Tessa. I left the note on the hospital bed and walked out. When I got to my apartment, I immediately called Mr. Patterson. Hi, it's Tessa. I just got discharged from the hospital. That's wonderful news. How are you feeling? Much better. The doctor wants me to take a month off to recover. Would that be okay? Of course, take as much time as you need. We'll manage things here. Thank you. I'm thinking about going to one of those health resorts, maybe somewhere in the mountains where I can relax and get my strength back. That sounds perfect. You've earned it. After we hung up, I started researching places online. I found this beautiful retreat center about 3 hours away that offered yoga, meditation, healthy meals, and spa treatments. It looked like exactly what I needed. But first, I needed to block some phone numbers. I went into my contacts and blocked my mom, my dad, and Emma. Whatever they had to say to me, I didn't want to hear it. I spent the next day packing for my trip to the retreat center and just resting at home. It felt weird to be in my apartment during normal work hours, but also peaceful. For the first time in years, I wasn't stressed about deadlines or checking emails every 5 minutes. The next morning, I was getting ready to leave for the mountains when there was a loud banging on my front door. Not knocking, banging. Like someone was trying to break the door down. Tessa, open this door right now. It was my mother's voice, but I'd never heard her sound so angry. My heart started racing, but not from a heart condition this time. I looked through the peephole and saw all 3 of them standing there, my mom, my dad, and Emma. My mom was red in the face and looked furious. We know you're in there, she shouted, your car's in the parking lot. I took a deep breath and spoke through the door. Go away, I don't want to talk to you. Don't you dare talk to us like that, my father yelled, open this door immediately. No, I said firmly, leave or I'm calling the police. Then Emma started talking, and her voice was all fake sweet, like when she was little and trying to get out of trouble. Tessa, please, we just want to understand what happened. We read your note and we're so confused. Why are you being so mean to us? I almost laughed. Mean to them? After everything they'd put me through? You want to know why? I said loudly enough for them to hear through the door. You chose Emma's party over visiting me when I was dying in the hospital. I heard the recording of your conversation with Dr. Chen. You said not to bother you with this nonsense when your daughter was having a heart attack. There was silence for a moment, then my mother started crying, those fake, dramatic sobs she used to pull when she wanted sympathy. We didn't know how serious it was, she wailed. The doctor didn't explain it properly. Bullshit, I said. He told you I was in critical condition and might not survive the night. You understood perfectly, you just didn't care. That's not true, Emma spoke up, and now she sounded genuinely upset instead of fake sweet. Mom and Dad love you. They're always talking about how proud they are of you. Only when they need money from me, I replied. Which is why you're really here, isn't it? Because I stopped sending the $1,200 every month. The crying stopped abruptly. I'd hit the nail on the head. We have bills to pay, my mother said, her voice switching from sad to angry again. You promised you'd help us with the mortgage. I never promised anything. You guilt-tripped me into it, and I was stupid enough to fall for it. But that's over now. You can't just cut us off, my father shouted, we're your parents. You stopped being my parents when you refused to visit me on my deathbed. Now get away from my door before I call the police. You're being ridiculous, Emma said. We had plans that night. It was my promotion party. I worked really hard for that promotion. And there it was, the truth finally coming out. Even now, Emma thought her party was more important than my life. Emma, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, I was dying. Do you understand that? I could have died that night, and you would never have seen me again. And you think your work party was more important than that? Well, I mean, but you didn't die, so it worked out fine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She actually thought that because I survived, their decision was justified. Get out, I said, all of you, get out of here right now. I heard footsteps walking away, then car doors slamming, then an engine starting. I waited until I was sure they were gone before I looked out the window and saw their car driving away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I'd finally stood up to them. After 34 years, I'd finally told them exactly what I thought of their behavior. The drive to the retreat center was beautiful. It was up in the mountains, surrounded by pine trees and hiking trails. When I checked in, the woman at the front desk smiled and said, "Welcome. You look like you could use some relaxation." You have no idea, I said. The next few days were exactly what I needed. I did yoga in the mornings, got massages in the afternoons, and ate healthy meals that someone else prepared. I went on nature walks and actually slept for 8 hours a night. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. On my third day there, I was sitting by the lake reading a book when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but it had the same area code as my hometown. Hello? Tessa, this is your Aunt Linda. My dad's sister. I hadn't talked to her in years. Oh, hi Aunt Linda, how did you get this number? Your parents gave it to me. They called me yesterday and asked me to talk to you. They said you were having some kind of mental breakdown and they were worried about you. I laughed, I couldn't help it. A mental breakdown? Is that what they're calling it? They said you cut them off financially and won't talk to them anymore. They think the heart attack affected your judgment somehow. Aunt Linda, can I tell you what really happened? I explained everything, the phone call to the hospital, their refusal to visit, how they only contacted me when they realized the money had stopped coming. I told her about the years of favoritism, the stolen college fund, everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Oh my God, she said quietly, Tessa, I had no idea. I knew Emma was their favorite, but I didn't realize it was that bad. I asked Dr. Chen for a recording of their phone conversation. If you want to hear it, I can send it to you. Please do, I need to hear this for myself. I sent her the audio file and waited. 20 minutes later, she called me back. I am so sorry, she said, and she was crying. "I can't believe they did that to you. I'm completely on your side in this. What they did was unforgivable." "Thank you," I said. "It means a lot to hear that from someone in the family. For what it's worth, I don't think you're having a mental breakdown. I think you're finally thinking clearly for the first time in years." When I got back home from the retreat a week later, I felt like a completely different person. I was rested, my stress levels were way down, and I had a new perspective on life. I went back to work, but I made changes. I stopped working late every night. I took real lunch breaks. I said no to projects that would require ridiculous hours. My boss was supportive, he'd seen what overwork had done to me, and he didn't want it to happen again. I also put my house buying plans on hold. I realized that having my own place was important, but not important enough to kill myself over. I could wait another year or two and save up money at a healthier pace. Most importantly, I stuck to my decision about my family. I never unblocked their numbers. I never sent them money. When holidays came around, I made my own plans. 6 months later, I'm doing great. My health is good, I'm sleeping well, and I'm actually enjoying my life for the first time in years. I still live in my rental apartment, but I've made it feel more like home. I've started dating a bit, and I've made some real friends outside of work. Do I miss my family? Sometimes I miss the idea of having a family, but I don't miss the stress and manipulation and constant feeling of not being good enough. I'm better off without them.